All right, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Defense in Depth panel session, Energizing the Battlefield, the Future of War at the Edge. At this time, I'd like everybody to turn their cell phones to the silent mode. And as a reminder before we get started, the audience will be invited to ask questions once the panelists have concluded their remarks. There's a mic here in the center. When you come up, please indicate who you are and please have a question. I have the pleasure of introducing the moderator of the panel today, Captain Charles Newt McKissick. Captain McKissick serves as the Senior Military Advisor of the Energy Portfolio at the Defense Innovation Unit. Prior assignments include Commanding Officer of Naval Base Coronado, Deputy Director of the Navy Appropriations Matters Office, and the Pentagon in support of the Assistant Secretary of the Navy for Financial Management and Comptroller. He graduated from the United States Naval Academy and went on to earn his Executive Master's of Business Administration degree from the Naval Postgraduate School and a Master of Arts in National Security and Strategic Studies, from the Naval War College. Captain McKissick has flown more than 3,000 flight hours. He's been recognized as Squadron Pilot of the Year, HSL Wing Pilot of the Year, and received the peer-nominated Commander Naval Forces Air Leadership Award. His personal awards include 2 Legion of Merit Awards, 2 Meritorious Service Medals, and 4 Navy and Marine Corps Commendation Medals, and 4 Navy and Marine Corps Achievement Medals. It's my pleasure to bring him to the mic and turn it over to him. Sir, thank you very much.
I won't go that long. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here today. It's so good to see so many of you that I have had the opportunity to work with in the past, and I really appreciate the work that you are doing to move these efforts forward. Thank you very much for that introduction, and everyone, it's a privilege to be here today at AFCEA West. We are fortunate to have an outstanding panel of forward-leaning leaders from the Navy, Marine Corps, and Defense Innovation Unit, each playing a critical role in shaping how we power and sustain our forces in evolving operational landscape. There's an old saying often attributed, perhaps apocryphally, to the British statesman Austen Chamberlain, "May you live in interesting times." Looking at today's world, interesting is certainly an understatement. From Ukraine to the Eastern Mediterranean, to the Red Sea, and the growing tensions in the Pacific, we see a shifting security environment where technological advances, masked threats, and unconventional warfare are reshaping how conflicts will unfold. For decades, our maritime forces have set the global standard, ensuring control of the seas and fostering peace and prosperity through their presence. But that dominance is increasingly being challenged. At the heart of every platform, every system, every warfighting capability we deploy lies a fundamental truth. None of it works without power. Energy is not just a logistical concern, it's a strategic enabler. From bases to ships, from contested logistics to resilient infrastructure, our ability to generate, store, and sustain power directly impacts operational effectiveness, readiness, and resilience. And that's exactly why we are here today. Joining us are 3 leaders who are at the forefront of this challenge, ensuring that our warfighters have the energy resources they need to defend our nation and prevail in any conflict. Brigadier General Nick Brown, Commanding General, Marine Corps Installations West, Marine Corps Base Camp Pendleton. Rear Admiral Brad Rosen, Commander, Navy Region Southwest. And Dr. Andrew Heiger, Director of the Energy Portfolio, Defense Innovation Unit, Office of the Secretary of Defense. Well, let's dive in and hear from each of them on how we can energize the battlefield for the fight ahead. And I'll turn it over for opening remarks, Brigadier General Brown.
Well, Newt, thank you. Really appreciate the opportunity to be here and opportunity to be with all of you here today. I am truly humbled and for the privilege of being the commanding general of Marine Corps Installations West. Because when I view our installations and our West Coast bases, I have a keen understanding that our installations are critical to the success of the Marine Corps, particularly here on the West Coast. Our bases do everything from sustaining the transformation or beginning the transformation right up the street at the Marine Corps Recruit Depot, to amphibious training along the coast of Camp Pendleton, to major combined arms training there in 29 Palms, as well as Bridgeport. It is said that 75 to 80% of Marines that deploy anywhere in the world will come through a West Coast base for training, and that's true. It is indeed the gateway to the Pacific, and we need to invest in it like it is. Our three major bases, now more than ever, are truly power projection platforms. And that is, of course, Yuma, Miramar, and Camp Pendleton, and I can make the argument that 29 Palms is a power projection platform as well. It maintains a ready posture for one MEF, and like Newt said, it doesn't go without power and energy. And so when I think of the way we need to approach our bases, particularly here on the West Coast, we have to understand that it's still going to run like a city, right? We have all the things that a small city has: hospitals, roads, water. We do all the things and services that a small city has to do. But more than ever, it needs to be an operational enabler. That wasn't always the case. For 20 years in Iraq and Afghanistan, those bases were installations in of themselves. And our only role was to ensure that the units were trained to go into Iraq and Afghanistan, and then receive them when they came home. Now more than ever, the operational installation has to be able to sustain the force from the forward edge all the way back to the base, and be able to provide C2, be a platform for C2 during the fight. So I think the way we want to think about installations now is that we don't want to say installations energy anymore. It is operational energy. And I think all of our investments and all of our approaches have to be taken in that vein. There's three elements of operational energy, in my opinion, and this is what we talk about at Installations West. There's three things. Reliable, needs to be reliable. Needs to be consistent and flexible and there when you need it. It needs to be resilient to outages, whether it's physical outages or cyber outages or network outages. And it needs to be efficient. And when I think efficiency, it's not always, okay, we gotta reduce costs, we gotta reduce, less is more efficient. Sometimes more is more efficient, as long as that more energy is in the right places at the right time. And I think about in a crisis, where do we wanna focus our energy to ensure that we can sustain the bases? Is it the airfield? Is it critical infrastructure like a water plant? Is it the hospital? Is it the 911 center? These are the things we think about because we know that all of this energy is just not going to be there, in a crisis. So we want to make sure that we can focus and be efficient at the right place and at the right time. So I really look forward to the continued dialogue here today. I think we are on a good path, and I think events like this kind of keeps us set up for success. Because we know that we can't do it without your partnership. Thanks, Steve.
Thank you, General. Admiral Rosen.
Good morning, everyone. I'm truly honored to be here today, talk about energy in Navy Region Southwest. For those who don't know, Navy Region Southwest is responsible for the 10 installations in the 6 states that make up the Southwest United States. And I'm often known as the Navy Mayor of San Diego. I explain my job to those outside the fence line as I'm a combination landlord and mayor. And most people can appreciate that the landlords and mayors don't get a lot of calls that go, thanks, you're doing a bang-up job. So I don't get a lot of calls like that. But once I came to that realization, it certainly made my job a lot easier for me. And I think if I had to summarize the challenges that we faced on the installations in Navy Region Southwest and really across all 70 installations, the Navy as a whole, it's very similar to what you see outside the fence line. When it comes to power, just like Nick said, what we need is power that's resilient, reliable, and efficient. And I think there's a recognition recently within the Navy of the importance of the installation and its role in force generation. Our relatively new Chief of Naval Operations, Admiral Franchetti, she has three priorities: warfighting, warfighters, and foundation. And that number three, foundation on the list, that's her recognition of the role that installations play. And I think the adage, a saying that we use a lot in my world is, air power starts in the hangar and sea power starts at the pier. And energy is critical to all of those elements. So I think, to be honest with you, it's a relatively good time to be an installation guy in the United States Navy. For decades, we have under-resourced the shore. A general rule of thumb among industry is, as you put, invest about 4% of the plant replacement value in the upgrading of the infrastructure. For decades, the Navy has been funding it at 1 or 2%, which has led to failing infrastructure. And as Nick mentioned, that's because we were fighting wars overseas for nearly 2 decades. So there's a recognition that we took some risk in the shore, especially in places like utilities, and I think that tide has turned. And we're certainly trending in the right direction. And I think that is a good thing, and it makes my job a lot easier. The last thing that I'll leave you with is, Nick mentioned, hey, as he looks at his installations, is it the hospital, is it the 911 center, is it the airfield that you need power to? And I'm going to chat on my Admiral Kaler from his remarks this morning and say, I want it all. I think what COVID showed us, one of the bright sides of COVID in the installation world, is the importance of all of these enablers. So while at first blush it might be easy, it might be easy to think, mistakenly think, that the airfield is more important than the child development center. But what COVID showed is that for any sustained period of time, all of the enablers that we have across our base are equally as important. And we cannot generate forces without all of those enablers. So when I look at energy at the base, I want, when the lights go out outside the fence line, I need the lights to stay on inside the fence line so that I can help Admiral Kaler and Pac Fleet with force generation. So once again, I look forward to the continued discussion, and I appreciate y'all being here.
Thank you, Admiral. Dr. Heiger.
Thank you all, and thanks for the great opening remarks. Perfect for leading into a little bit about what we do at DIU. Admiral Rosen mentioned energy as an enabler, and that's exactly what we do. So my job as the Director of Energy at DIU is to ensure that the warfighter has energy from the base to the tactical edge and everything in between. I mean, that means if it uses energy, I do it, and everything uses energy. So we're talking large-scale systems, bases, batteries, small systems for the tactical edge, small units and things like that. It's my job to ensure that the warfighter is never in a fair fight, and to do that, they have to have the best technology, and to do that, the Department of Defense has to get the best technology into the hands of the warfighter, and often the best technology sits out there with those guys. And at DIU, what we do is move quickly to get that technology into the hands of the warfighter so that we can project power from our bases, and we can make sure our warfighters are safe, because if they're not safe, they're not effective. We do that by making sure that they have the best systems available in contested environments, using less fuel to do fewer supply runs, fuel supply runs, ensuring that the child development centers have power so that these guys can do their command and control, ensuring that the flight line has power, whether it's because of a man-made attack or weather. We need to ensure that the bases are resilient and have power at all times. We need to ensure that that our aircraft are efficient. We need to ensure that our batteries are safe and the supply chain is resilient, which at the moment it really is not. All you have to do is read the news to see that. So we touch all of that here at DIU and in the energy portfolio. And so I guess I'll just close with The Admiral does get calls from me saying he's doing a bang-up job, and so does the General. And that's because at DIU, we don't generate requirements. These guys generate requirements, and it's our job to make sure that their requirements are getting fulfilled and they're getting met. And these two guys and a lot of our DoD military partners at DIU are really leaning forward and pushing the cutting edge. We need partners like that. We can't do the projects we do without partners like this. I always tell people, these guys don't do science projects, right? They're keeping their lights on. And it's our job to help them keep the lights on, because if they don't keep the lights on, then we don't win the fight.
Thank you. All right, I'll start with a question, and this is for the entire group. As the nature of warfare evolves with emerging threats and technologies, what do you see as the most critical capability gaps in installation resilience, energy security and sustainment, at home or at the edge, that must be addressed to support the operational force? General, we'll start with you.
Okay. No, Newt, thanks for that question. And, I don't know if there's any specific capability gap I would point to, and I probably wouldn't want to do that anyway. But I would tell you that I have concerns, right? If not a gap, then a concern. Number one is the aging infrastructure, all right? If you walk on any of our bases here on the West Coast, it is circa 1942. Right, and you walk on Camp Pendleton, as beautiful as it is, there are some places aboard the base where you feel like you are in 1942, right? And that's just the reality, right? And that goes with some of the power infrastructure as well as utilities as well. So the concern is are new advances in energy and new advances in science, is the base even equipped to accept that? Is the base equipped to integrate those things? I think, a great analogy that I shared with, one of our young Marines is, and they didn't remember it, but I shared it anyway. I look at kind of our ability to accept new technology like the movie Back to the Future. Remember, Doc had come up with this thing, right? It was called the flex capacitor, right? And, but he needed something that would go 88 miles an hour to activate it. And by God, if he didn't have a DeLorean to do it. Right, so I am charged with putting a flex capacitor in a 1995 Mazda, right? Because that's basically what Camp Pendleton is right now. Now, a Mazda can get to 88 miles an hour, so don't take any offense to all the Mazda owners here. It can get there, but it's a slog to get to 88 miles an hour. What we want is a DeLorean type of vehicle that's going to get us there quickly, and so that is really a challenge in this aging infrastructure that we're in. I think also another concern is our ability to adapt and innovate at the speed of relevance. Things are happening so fast, right? The speed of technology, the speed of science, the speed of academia, when it comes to energy and new advances. If we are not able to adapt at the installation level at that speed or close, we're going to lag behind and be an impediment to operational expeditionary operations. And so we want to be able to adapt, and the threats are happening so fast, and that we may have a hard time adapting. So that is a concern for us. And the only way to get around that is to make smart investments, is to have an operational energy focus, and to be able to look out to 2045, 2050. Right now, on a day-to-day basis, we're just trying to get to Friday, right? And just trying to keep the lights on, right? And so we need to be able to think about what technology is going to look like in 2045 and 2050, and be able to make investments that'll take us there. And Marines, as talented, as smart as they are, and we have some really good ones, we're not equipped to think in 2045 and 2050 and understand how to integrate technologies, and that's where you come in. Because at the end of the day, I expect Marines to be riflemen, and that's who they are. Right? So we need to have that focus and need to be able to partner in order to be able to think that far out. So those are some of the concerns that I have, Newt, and I just wanted to kind of talk to you.
Thanks, sir. Admiral?
Yeah, thanks for that, Newt, and thanks, Dick. I'll go ahead and foot stomp everything that Nick said, particularly with respect to aging infrastructure. As I said in my opening remarks, we've under-resourced that across the Navy for quite some time. And the result of that is the challenges that we face inside the fence line are exactly the challenges that we face outside the fence line in terms of energy that's reliable, resilient, and efficient. Additionally, our challenges are very similar to what you face in your personal life. Most people can appreciate that when it comes time for a personal home renovation, people are interested in a new kitchen. They're not interested in electrical service. When it comes to municipalities, city leaders, taxpayers, voters are interested in new parks, new schools, et cetera. They're not interested in investing in water lines in the ground or utility in the ground. So highlighting the importance and the impact on systems such as these on the operational impact is a challenge that we face. And the reality is that all of our bases today, for the most part, are reliant on outside the fence line for their support, both in terms of power, water, and all utilities. And assured access of those power, utilities, et cetera, outside the fence line cannot be relied upon. So we need a resilient system, which is a focus of mine. A lot of pressure, the Marine Corps gets a lot of press for Marine Corps Air Station Miramar, and the fact that they can take that installation and operate it completely independent of the grid. We need to do that at all of our installations, and that's what I'm striving to do. But that takes time, that takes money, that takes new technologies, it takes new collaboration, it takes collaboration with the commercial sector as well. So that's what we are striving to do, to get installations that are truly resilient so that we can generate forces to go out over the horizon.
Hey, if I could make one more point, and I failed to do this before. When we talk about that, just to look back a little bit, when we talk about smart investments and the underinvestment in our installations since probably 2000 through 2021, I would tell you those underinvestments in our installations was because we were making smart investments in theater. The one time, the Commandant and I were alone in the room. He said when I first took the job, he said, Nick, I'm never going to apologize for the investments we made in 2020 to 2021, because I would argue that many Marines are standing here today because of those investments we made. Remember how you felt in Iraq during the invasion when you were in soft-skinned vehicles. You had nothing really to protect you, and how you were and how you felt in 2016. When you had armored vehicles that could survive impacts, IED impacts. And a bullet. You could withstand a bullet to the chest because we had the appropriate gear. So I appreciate that he said that. But as we look forward now into this future fight, which is going to be a lot different, I think we're going to continue to make those smart investments going forward. So I just want to make sure that we don't take it as like, well, the Corps kind of failed us because we didn't invest in our facilities the way we should have. From barracks to energy to everything else. I think that we made some smart investments to keep our Marines safe and alive. So I just want to make that point.
Dr. Hager.
All right. So as I said a few minutes ago, we don't do requirements and gaps at DIU. So what I'll say is this: what keeps these guys up at night keeps me up at night, and I would argue that it should probably keep you up at night as well, all of you, especially the folks in the private sector, because the reality is the ability to deter major conflict or win if forced to fight is going to affect all of us at the end of the day. So if these guys tell me it's important and they're telling you it's important, I would encourage us all to listen closely to that. It means it's important, and it will affect us all. So that being said, if the private sector folks out there have a technology that can solve that problem, I'm the guy you call. So please do. And that's what we do at DIU. There's always going to be gaps. There's going to be new gaps coming up constantly. We are technology agnostic. I've released solicitations that say, we need large-scale energy storage, and I've gotten everything from compressed air to lithium ion to moving rocks up and down a hill. Great. They all sound good to me. If it works, we're going to take it, and we're going to solve their problems with it. So that's the way we work at DIU. We're focused on solving gaps, not the technology itself. The general mentioned the speed of relevance. I think that's incredibly important, and it's a big part of what we do at DIU. So if I could go in a slightly different direction, I'd say that the gap we have as an organization is the ability to move fast, and then the ability to iterate on that problem and continue to move fast. Because the reality is these problems arise quickly and they change all the time. So if we can't move fast and get the technology in the department to solve their problems quickly, then we're going to fail. And so that is a big part of what we do at DIU. Move fast, iterate, move fast, iterate, and keep going. So that way we're moving at the speed of relevance, and we're also moving at the speed of the private sector. Because I think all you have to do is look at your phone or your car or whatever it is to know that the technology changes sometimes every 6 months, maybe every year. So we want to be able to continue to work with the private sector so that as the technology evolves, so does our ability to solve the problem that these guys have with that latest and greatest technology.
Thank you. Well, thank you for that. And it's clear that we've got an acceptance and an understanding of the challenge. That's getting real. Let it not be said that we are not pressing ferociously to get better. So with that, I was wondering if you could share some key accomplishments that you've seen, whether it be through partnerships with the commercial sector, innovation accelerators, or internal programs that are driving improvements in installation resilience, energy security, and sustainment. And how are these initiatives enhancing capabilities for both warfighters at the edge and those operating from home stations? General, we'll start with you.
Okay. And as Brad mentioned, some of the technology innovations we're very proud of, and one is that microgrid at Miramar. It's a proven capability. We've been able to turn that on, and we know that it works. It is one of those 3 megawatt hours we think can stay in the airfield for an extended period of time. And we know that, again, like I said, Miramar is a power projection platform. We're also, smartly up between our palms, with a 1.1 megawatt solar farm. And I'll talk about solar here in a second, but to harness that environment to power 29 palms, I think is the way to go. And Brad and I were in Sacramento last week, and a lot of discussion about how much is wind and renewables and solar going to be, and in 2025 is it going to have the same gusto that it had in 2024? And I would submit to you that. No matter where Washington, how they feel about some of these things, if it has national security implications, I would submit to you there'll be no pushback. If there are things that we could use when it comes to wind turbine and solar and those renewables, EV charging, if we apply it, if we can confidently tell our seniors that it will have national security implications and we want to take advantage of it, I don't expect any pushback back there. Another thing we're excited about is it's called the Grid 2020 Distribution Transformer Monitors. We have a few hundred right now in Camp Pendleton, and essentially what that does is it monitors in real time changes to our transformers, power outages and surges, and essentially it can detect wildfires really before they begin, if you will. One of the things that keeps me up at night on Camp Pendleton. And anytime, someone says the word Paradise, California, or La Jolla, Hawaii, or Los Angeles County, that can happen on Camp Pendleton in an instant. One fire in the Zulu impact area, and within 12 hours, if conditions are right, there will be no Camp Pendleton. All right, so we're talking about minutes and seconds. And so we're excited about this Grid 2020 Transformer Monitor System because what, as good as range control is, a lot of times it's visual, so we have smoke in an impact area. We can't wait that long anymore. Conditions, what we have seen, with respect to wildfires is that we have to almost react before the fire even begins. And when we know a transformer is surging somewhere, then the fire department needs to be on alert. So we're very, very proud of, or very excited about this system with respect to wildland firefighting. And also, one of the things we're also excited about is a partnership with the California Energy Commission for a 40 megawatt long duration energy storage project. And essentially, if it's done to specs, we will have a firm power base. Should the lights go out, we will be able to continue to operate. And part of that is just a partnership with the state of California and to get grant money. And we will always spend grant money. That money will be spent wisely every single time. So there are a few enhancements that we're excited about in the installations portfolio on the energy side. I'm sorry, the energy portfolio here in the installation. So thank you.
Thank you, sir. Admiral.
Thanks, Bob. So I would just like to foot stomp against some of what Nick said. Our portfolios are very similar. The relationships that we have with the state are very similar as well. My boss often talks about, that his favorite type of money is OPM, and that's other people's money. We love getting after that whenever we can. As Nick mentioned, the installations here in the Southwest, both Marine Corps and Navy, have a tremendous relationship with the California Energy Commission that is really the envy of the entire Navy, and it's unmatched anywhere else in the country. We've worked with DIU and the California Energy Commission to install electric vehicle chargers, both for our commercial fleet and our privately owned vehicles on our installations. So those are dual-use chargers that can be used for a swipe of a card for the government fleet or personally owned vehicle. That is important for quality of service for our sailors and civilians who own electric vehicles. That is a tremendous effort. Nick talked about the long-duration energy storage that they have at Pendleton. They received a $40 million project. We received an $8 million project at Naval Base San Diego. Again, with California Energy Commission grant money, no cost to the U.S. Federal taxpayer. We look to continue to get after that because our problems are not unique to the military. I'll talk something that's outside of energy right now. And that is a smart ECP project that we have, smart entry control project being installed at Naval Base Coronado on North Island. And again, access control, physical access control is something that many organizations face. And if you look at how the Navy, the military, has been controlling access control at our ECPs, it hasn't changed in 30 years. We used to have stickers on our car. Now shortly after I started my career, we transitioned to handing an ID to a sentry, they scan it, and then they wave you on. I was a firm believer in that there had to be a better solution to that. And again, that solution resides in industry. Just like with the energy portfolio, I am solution agnostic with everything. So we went out to industry. We collaborated with Naval X to reach out to ONR. They found a grant. They found a program that uses facial recognition, and we have now installed that on a pilot basis at Naval Base Coronado. The challenge with driving innovation is it's hard to do it from the tactical level. I think it's relatively easy for the CNO or the Secretariat to drive innovation from their level because they control the purse strings. The reality is much of the innovation ecosystem is looking for a commitment to roll out a solution more broadly. And because I don't have that type of budget authority, I cannot commit to rolling out any solution to 70 installations across the entire Navy. So that becomes problematic, and I think that's something that we need to look to get after over time.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Heiger.
So I have about 40 projects in my portfolio, and I really wish I could talk about all of them right now, but I'll try to hit a few that I think really hammer home some critical points, both in terms of solving the gaps and sort of how DIU works. The first I'll mention is we have a flow battery installation at Bridgeport. Marine Corps Base Bridgeport, they were dealing with a lot of weather-related incidents. It's in the Eastern Sierra. They get a lot of snow, and so they approached us to ensure some of their critical infrastructure always had power no matter what. And so that's being installed now, although they've been recently hampered by some snowy weather, ironically. But I think that shows the ability when a base comes to us and says we have a problem, we're going to move quickly to solve it. Another one I'm really happy about is actually ongoing, and so I can't talk about it too much, but it's our nuclear power for installation project. It's a project that if you would have asked me just a few years ago, is DIU going to do a nuclear project, I would have said no, because the private sector is not doing that. Here we are a few years later, and there's dozens of companies and even more VCs investing in that technology. And because of that, we were able to quickly start a nuclear project. So that goes to my previous point about moving at the speed of relevance, moving at the speed of the private sector. So didn't exist, thanks to the private sector. It does exist now, or it will soon. And so we put out a solicitation, and that's undergoing selection right now. The Navy approached us about replacing one of the weapons systems on the DDG-1000 with large-scale energy storage. And that's an electric ship, so we said, yeah, we think we could do that. It was the fastest solicitation to award in my portfolio, and don't quote me, but maybe in DIU history. So we were able to move very, very fast. I don't remember the exact number, but it was a month or so from solicitation to award, and we now have a vendor on contract to do that work on the DDG. It'll be DDG 1001. And then finally, I'll talk about a project that I think has a little more of a personal impact. We have a project to reduce the fuel demands of light, medium, and heavy tactical vehicles. I have a number of Marines and soldiers who work for me, most of whom served in Iraq and Afghanistan, and all of whom have told me, I wish we had this technology back then, because we would have lost less people, because we would have needed less fuel, and we would have needed to move less fuel in very, very dangerous areas. So that one, on a personal level, I think is one of the most important projects we have. So that covers everything from bases to ships to sort of mobile forward operating energy, and that's what my portfolio does. So those are just a few that I wanted to hit on.
Thank you, sir. Well, we have heard from leaders today that there's a strategic imperative to accelerate new technologies and capabilities to the warfighter through lowering of barriers and cutting of red tape. Gentlemen, what do you see as the biggest barriers to enhancing operational installation resilience, energy security, and sustainment? And what steps, whether in policy, funding, partnerships, or culture, are needed to overcome these challenges? General, you want to lead us off? Or?
Sure. I'll kick this one off. So I think before Andrew mentioned that he's solution agnostic. I think in my portfolio, I'm certainly solution agnostic when it comes to energy. I don't care what the power source is, as long as we can maintain the power. I'm also hazard agnostic. I think it is probably, you could make the argument that is just as likely that installation power could be impacted by wildfires, by flood, by wind events, by a kinetic attack by a non-state actor, or a cyber attack by a near peer. All of those, if they take down the commercial grid, it has the exact same impact on the installations. So I don't want to face any, I don't want to get after one solution that only goes after one hazard or only provides one technology to provide resiliency to the base. I think we need to take all hazards, all solutions, keep them all on the table as we look to provide resiliency. I think it's also important to know that the stovepipe funding within the Department of Defense is problematic. You know, using the type of money that I have largely available at my level is OMEN. You know, which is operations and maintenance funding. Once we're buying systems, it becomes OPN or other procurement funding. And I don't have a ton of that. If it comes to research and development, like the pilot project right now, I have virtually no R&D funding at my level. So that is certainly a challenge that we face. And it comes back to the last question where the reason that we need to look for partnerships and work with organizations like Naval X, like with the Naval Postgraduate School. I'm pursuing a project to create a microgrid at Naval Base Point Loma, similar to what they have out at Miramar. But in order to do that, I need to partner with NPS because they have access to both R&D money and OPN money. They have the relationships with Stanford University so that we can bring in outside experts to get after these common problems. And I think the other thing that we need to recognize when it comes to energy is something oftentimes in the federal bureaucracy, we have decisions that are being made not by the appropriate risk owner. And the bureaucracy, for good people trying to do good things, they are making decisions when they are not the risk owner. So recognizing who is the risk owner, empowering them to the respective risk owner to plow through whatever barriers may be in place. I think that's something that will really be helpful to the innovation community.
No, I concur with everything Brad said. It's the number one, the all hazards for us is something that we think about all the time. One of the things I would tell you, and at the risk of being overly simplistic, one of the biggest barriers that we have is money, right? Frankly, dollars. It costs money to power a base. Energy costs money. I jokingly look at every quarter we get our utility bill, right, for Camp Pendleton. And it's probably a lot like, a California resident when they get their bill in the mail and they like, and that's me every quarter. Like, we paid how much in utilities? And understanding that it just costs a lot. A base that big is going to cost a lot of money. And so we want to be efficient, in how we power our base on a day-to-day basis. Even if we're not really investing for the future now, we want to invest smartly and be efficient today, because every dollar saved, in my opinion, is a dollar that can be reinvested, somewhere else in the innovation space, in the modernization space of the base, to improve readiness for the fleet. So we want to be efficient there, but it costs money, and it costs a lot of it to power a base. Like Brad said, there is no debate. If the balloon goes up, in our future fight, the battle will start right at the installation. Any smart adversary will do all that they can to disrupt and delay right at our base. And there is a menu of options that a bad guy has, to do just that. So we have to be resilient, against that. And then finally, we want to retain the talent and the partnerships, in thinking ahead. Every time someone says AI to me in a meeting, I just turn off because I don't know much more other than the term AI or autonomous ... or directed energy or the word quantum in front of anything. I just don't have the mental bandwidth to understand what that means to me or what that means to our installations in 2040 and 2050. So we want to rely on our partners at the Navy Postgraduate School. We want to rely on you to help us understand what that means. And then if I were king for a day, we're lucky we have a Marine Corps Tactical Support activity right there in Camp Pendleton. So whenever we're up to something, we kind of look over the fence and they let us in to kind of take a look at the newest and latest. The Marine Corps Warfighting Labs all the way in Quantico, if I was king for a day, I would have a building where they could come to the West Coast and operate. I'm sure the Warfighting Lab would love to come out to Southern California and operate for a while, because I want to know what they're up to as well, because they have some dollars that could be invested in the things that we do. And finally, and I know Brad will say the same, for our partners, we want to be the installation of choice, right? When you want to test a prototype or, you have some RDT&E dollars, we want to be able to give you the real estate, give you the Marines, give you the office space to test and evaluate those things that are going to make us successful in an energy portfolio. So that's it.
I'll start with just continuing what the general was just saying. the fact that these gentlemen stand up and say we want our bases to be the place of choice to test that, it really matters. Because what we're doing is trying to get the best technology, but if there's no base that's standing up and saying I need it, then we don't go anywhere. I just wanted to continue that point a little bit and hammer that, and then I'll back up, and we might as well go 3 out of 3, and I'll also say funding. So funding is always an issue, and then I think Brad said it very, very well. The risk owner needs to really be involved in that decision, and that is not me. I am not the risk owner. They're the risk owner. I'm here to execute that funding quickly and efficiently, both for the taxpayer and for the warfighter. But the reality is we need to be able to move quickly with the right funding going to the right people. That's always an issue we face in DoD. That being said, to the original question, the ability to move at the speed of the private sector is very important for the department, and DIU was really stood up, quite literally stood up in 2016 to do just that. And so I believe that it's our job to make sure that we are helping the private sector lower those barriers to entry into the DoD. Many of the folks out here don't know how to work with the department if they've never done it before. They've got a great technology, but they have no idea who to call. I'm the guy you call, okay? We take calls like that. We've made it easy to apply to our solicitations. You just send us a short white paper. You're never going to see a long, complicated Fed BizOps application that takes 200 pages. You just send us a white paper when we put out a solicitation, and then your foot's in the door. So lowering those barriers to entry has always been an issue, I think, for the department. I'm not saying DIU has solved that, but it is our job to try to solve it, and we're working hard every day to do that because we want the private sector to view the department as a good partner. If they don't, they're not going to want to work with us. If they don't want to work with us, we're not going to get the best technology. If we don't get the best technology, negative domino effect to everything these gentlemen were just talking about. So I'll say that from the DIU perspective, we have the private sector in mind as well. We're warfighter focused. It's warfighter first, but we do have the private sector in mind. We want to be good partners, and so that's a big part of what we do. We need to be able to move fast. I can't stress that enough. Move fast, move fast, move fast. And then I opened with this, and I guess I'll close with this. You all out there should care about what they care about, right? And I'll hammer that especially for the private sector folks. And if you care about what they care about, and you combine reaching out to me and working through how you get into the department, it's going to be a win-win-win, and that's what we want.
Thank you. As you've all highlighted, the answers and our solutions are going to be through the talent and the partnerships that come from outside of our fence line. And as I look out to the crowd today, I see a number of future partners. So I'd like to open it up to questions. If you just lead with your name, and if there's anybody you want to direct the question to.
Hey. All right, I'll just use my command voice.
All right.
All right, Eric Hahn, Naval Postgraduate School, Energy. Oh, it's working. Okay, Eric Hahn, Naval Postgraduate School, Energy Academic Group. I work on projects and research that deals with spending other people's money, not yours. So with that, I'd like to ask my question. Given the issues we have with, and we're only expected to see more with central utility, power reliability, our desire to spend other people's money, why aren't we seeing more third-party financed distributed utilities operating inside our fence lines that could not only keep our bases up 100% of the time, but could also keep the lights on outside of the fence line too, where most of your people live? That's my question.
Eric, thanks for that. I think I'll jump in first here. I think utility privatization it was in vogue for a period of time. There seems to be renewed interest right now. I think the biggest challenge to it is that it's bureaucratically cumbersome to get those UP projects across the finish line. There is an upcoming UP conference coming up here within the next month or so that Navy Region Southwest will be attending. The Army, I think, has kind of led the way with UP across the DoD, and I think that again, it comes back to the. I think it also comes back to the risk owner. So as the business case analysis is made, is turning over those assets to what is considered a private entity, it becomes so, the calculation becomes so expensive, and there's just no valuation that we just can't get those projects to pencil out, or the DLA really can't get those projects to pencil out, and the installations are the ones who are forced to suffer because of that. So I think there will be more to come on UP. I think we'll continue to look at it. It won't just be electrical systems. We look at water, we look at sewage. We are getting projects across the finish line across the Navy. So I'm hopeful that that will continue, because agree, that is just a way that we can tie in the expertise from outside the fence line to solve the problems that we have.
Yeah, and my sense as well, there's a little bit of risk aversion to kind of putting our foot in that water. I think a lot of us want to see how another service, kind of manages and how well it works for them. And then some of it just come out of normal relationships we've had with some of our power partnerships locally and in state. We haven't severed those, but yeah, I'm interested in certainly kind of how that taking that next step, because I think you're right. We benefit from that expertise from the private sector there as well.
And I'll just mention one thing, and it'll kind of follow on from what Brad said, which is that the process is cumbersome for them. That's not a process that we typically do. However, we are actually in the process of selecting a vendor for a project that we call Finance First 2.0. And we're very proud of that project because it's taken a while to get there. But it is designed not to look at a new technology, but a new process. Because at DIU we can do both. So the project basically, the solicitation basically requested, hey, what are you out there in the private sector doing in terms of financing processes? We all know about a PPA, but there could be many, many more that are being worked by power companies and others that the department is not doing. And so we closed that solicitation, and we're in the process of selection right now. So we're very excited about that. I can't say much more about it because we're in selection. But the idea is that project would demonstrate a new process, ideally, that would then reduce some of the cumbersome procedure that these guys have to deal with. And so that is something we can do and are working on. It's early stages right now.
Thank you. I can tell I've got my work cut out for me getting better educational content set out. The next question, just one more question if I could. One more question. What is your plan to contract for your POV and GOV EV infrastructure, and when's that going to happen?
So what we've done so far, largely, is I alluded to previously. We have projects for level 2 and level 3 chargers at Naval Base San Diego through grants that we solicited through the California Energy Commission, and DIU actually executed that contract. So I think that work will continue. I think on the commercial side, NEX has the lead, the right of first refusal for the creation of chargers for the POV fleet. And I think we will continue with studies. The electrification study that we've done with DIU and the California Energy Commission will help map out the way forward for that. So I think there's a lot of focus on it. I think it's a little bit early to determine exactly how it's going to play out, but it will continue to remain in our scan.
Yeah, same. We're on a trajectory, to do the same. We're seeing more EV charging stations on our bases as well. We don't know the strategy to kind of be fully fleeted out by 2030 at the Don level. We don't know if that's going to continue, but right now we're going to stay on the trajectory until told otherwise.
And I'll just briefly mention, because we are executing on behalf of them and actually every service. Each service is at a slightly different stage, and some just started earlier. So for example, Army Reserve, we actually finished the prototype and they released a $100 million production contract, and they're already scaling across 10 or 15 bases. The Air Force is in a production contract, both with vendors that DIU did. And these folks were finishing up their prototypes, and then pending the determination of where the services want to go, we stand by to switch that from prototype contract to production contract.
And working with DIU, the way those prototypes work is once the prototype is complete, we sign a success memo. The service signs off on that success memo, and that allows us to proceed with a production contract. It doesn't need to be recompeted. So that is the goodness associated with these projects that we've done with DIU.
Admiral's getting good at giving the DIU pitch. Huh?
All right, so we've got a line forming, but we only have about 5 more minutes, so if we can just, over to you, sir.
Hi, John Clem, Johnson Controls. We do a lot of work at both y'all's bases, Miramar, Coronado, a lot of the bases. NAVFAC recently hired us to do OT cybersecurity impact looks at bases in the Navy. And what we're finding is that there are a lot of vulnerabilities at those bases. And what we're discovering is that the building, in order to make it cyber safe, needs that flux capacitor that you talked about. And what has happened is, over time, a decision has been made to fund the leaky roof and not upgrade the technology because people don't understand what that brings to the mission. What it occurs to me is that industry has failed to appropriately partner with senior leaders because we haven't articulated the impact of the risk. How do we get involved in that discussion so that, like, the leaky roof is super important, you gotta fix it. But the flex capacitor that will make your nuclear mission safe at your installation is equally important. Industry needs to be able to find a way to articulate that with y'all, and I'm not sure how to partner. Like, we're failing because we're seeing your bases are vulnerable. How do we get into that conversation? A shout out to Finance First. Industry's excited about that too. It's going to change the way the Air Force does their energy procurements. Way to go.
I'm not sure if there was a question in that. I want to make sure that...
I think there was a question in there, John.
Yeah, Brad,
I mean,
you get it.
I think your question was, how does industry partner better with all of us? Because I think you believe that senior leaders don't recognize the cyber vulnerability. I think I'm just going to push back a tiny bit and say that I think there is tremendous recognition of our cyber vulnerabilities right now. I think where we as a Navy need to do better and need to improve is to get after those vulnerabilities. And I think it comes to those challenges, that we've articulated all throughout the panel today. I think we have MAA, the Mission Assurance Program, to get that, which recognizes that. NAVFAC is all in on identifying the problems. Now, what we need to do better is how do we get after those solutions? And unfortunately, I don't think I know the answer to that one. I think we'll continue to highlight it. I think recognizing that we have a problem is a first step in the process. And I'm cautiously optimistic that we will deploy our resources to get after that vulnerability. Because up until recently, to your point, is we have had our head in the sand for a bit, and we weren't recognizing it. And I think most recently, both events that are happening inside and outside the fence line are showing us where we're vulnerable.
And I know the Marine Corps has really made a lot of investments forward, and so we just need institutionally to expand that back here, to the bases as well.
Yeah, and we're short on time, so I'll just be quick and say, for the most part, you've heard me say over and over, their problems are my problems. But the reality is that conversations with industry do happen at DIU, and I can often take a technology that you all have told us about and say, hey, Admiral, hey, General, have you seen that these guys can do this? And that can turn into a project. Doesn't mean there's money, we still have the funding issue, but it can go that way, and so I would also encourage folks to reach out to DIU. We have a cyber portfolio. We have other portfolios besides energy, and there are ways for us to push that up to folks like the Admiral and the General here.
Yes, and I'll just add one point is that DIU is interested in the technology push from industry to enhance the capability, the understanding of the battle space of what is out there, so that we're learning from industry on how to do that. I want to leave opportunity for the Lieutenant here.
Good afternoon, Lieutenant McLiberty from Office of Naval Intelligence. I wrote my master's thesis on energy solutions for Arctic operations, considering both the energy requirement as well as natural, adversary, and domestic threats. Considering all that and the transfer of risk from outside the fence line to inside the fence line energy generation, do you see a certain energy technology kind of pulling ahead in the specific Southwest region's needs?
I don't, to be honest with you, and I think one, because I'm not smart enough. I'm not a technologist. I am a scientist, but it's a political scientist. and I flew airplanes for 20 years of my career. But I think more importantly, I think that's a conscious decision on my part because we want to be agnostic about the technological solution. I think the little bit that I do know about it, I think there are several solutions that are running neck and neck. I think the commercial sector will, in the coming years, will determine which is the most viable, and I think the most viable solution outside the fence line will be applied inside the fence line as well. Is how I see it playing out.
Sir.
Same.
Yeah, I think short answer is no, right? All of them.
Right.
I want all of them. And generally speaking, if somebody comes to me and says that theirs is the only one that can solve all these problems, that's generally the person I'll probably dismiss, right? So I think there's many viable solutions. I want to hear about all of them.
Absolutely. Thank you.
So continuity, a message from PAC Fleet to these gentlemen of yes, we want all of them. One more question here.
Gentlemen, thanks for being here. Jason Stahl from Siena. Just a quick question on how you balance power energy with the data center build-outs on the IT side of this house. What we're seeing is the energy requirements are not decreasing from our perspective, and especially with the drive towards AI development and data center build-outs. We see in the civilian sectors where data center builds have been halted because of energy availability, meaning cities are being told by their power companies, you can't build here because there is no more power. So because of this haltage, how does the Navy, Marine Corps, and DIU approach this in your future planning process for data centers, increased power requirements just to generate that? You mentioned microgrids a little bit, but what other solutions do you guys have in the future? Thank you.
Yeah, I think data centers is just one of many, many consumers of enormous energy on our installations. And I don't think we're treating data centers any different. You look at ships here coming here to San Diego. You're going to have the Ford-class carrier at North Island in the coming years. Tremendous power upgrades associated with that. You have DDG 1000 spreading out across the fleet. Tremendous power requirements, and the data centers that we'll have are tremendous users of energy as well. So I think we just take a holistic look. We recognize the requirements that we have out there, and then we're agnostic on the solutions. But I don't think we're paying any particular. Data centers are a significant user of energy, but I think it's just one of many competing users of it.
Yeah, same. We see it as a draw and a critical draw for us because if the MEF commander were here, and I think he's here later today, he will say that he wants Camp Pendleton he wants to be able to fight from home plate. Something that we haven't done before, and his operations center and the data center that supports it, is a critical draw for us. So I think, as we start to plan for the future and have master plans for our bases 20, 30, 40 years down the road, we need to make sure we factor those in. So yeah, I appreciate that perspective.
Yeah, and I think from my perspective, what's been great about this this issue that's arisen about powering AI data centers is that it's kind of brought the power problem front and center. But it's a problem that, as the Admiral said, these guys have had for a long time, way before data centers, powering aircraft carriers and things like that. And we've struggled as a department to keep up with that. But now, because the private sector is getting excited about it, if you will, because of AI data centers, we are getting things like heavy investments in micro and small nuclear reactors, which we are now doing a project in. Heavy investments in geothermal, which has been around a long time, but VCs are really excited about it again and starting to invest heavily in that. So I think this, for us, it's not an AI data center focus, but that issue has brought the power problem front and center, which has been good for all of us, because as the technology grows, we get better at solving all the problems that they have, not just the data center problems, of which there are many, as the Admiral said.
Well, gentlemen, thank you very much for your ownership of this challenge, your engagement for the solution. I thank all of you today for being here and working together as we move forward to achieving our shared goal of national security. And with that, I will turn it back over to Adam for closing.
Thank you, sir. On behalf of the Naval Institute and AFCEA International, I'd like to thank all of you for taking time to join us today and to share your thoughts and insights on this topic, and to thank the audience for your attendance and questions and participation. I'd like to present each one of the panelists with a book by Naval Institute Press. This is called Countering China's Great Game, a Strategy for American Dominance by author Michael Sobolik. And if you could, before you leave, or if you have an opportunity to take a moment to fill out the survey in the West app and let us know your thoughts on the panel, we would appreciate that. Again, thank you and good afternoon. Enjoy the rest of your day.